everyone is a part of us. And we're trying to create a global community.
Hello, and welcome to the Negative Space podcast presented by the Anthem Awards. I'm Patricia McLoughlin, and I'm the Anthem Awards General Manager and also your host here. We have 7 main cause areas that make up the Anthem Awards, and today we're going to be digging into humanitarian action and services, and more specifically, the global work of World Central Kitchen. Coordinating aid during humanitarian crises and following natural disasters is no simple task, but this work is vital and really provides hope for impacted communities across the globe. And now, I am really excited to be joined today by Anthem Judge, communications expert, and an Emmy-award-winning broadcast journalist, Linda Roth.
Thank you so much for having me, Patricia. It's going to be fun to talk to the social impact creative community today.
And I mean, to really kick things off, I would just love to hear a little bit about your career. And you've touched so many different areas of the impact space, from the newsroom to uplifting women, and now as the Chief Communications Officer of World Central Kitchen. I'm just so curious to know how you've kind of come into this role, and also how over time these different experiences have really shaped your approach here at World Central Kitchen.
Right. Well, I'm a storyteller at heart, and I think a lot of people listening probably are too. And stories are what connects us all together, creates a human connection, fosters empathy and understanding between people of different cultures and in different places all over the world. And that's really why I became a journalist, to show people a place or an event that they wouldn't get to see themselves, to inform, to explain, so that people really have all the information that they need to make decisions about their lives, hold their governments accountable, and all kinds of things like that. And really at the heart of that is storytelling. And I spent 2 decades at CNN doing that, went all over the globe covering wars, floods, fires, humanitarian crises, interviewed presidents, were leaders, celebrities, civil society leaders. And I always found that telling the story of the actual humans involved in no matter what issue you're covering was what really connected with people. And these skills were really useful to me when I changed careers and went over to the other side to do communications. At the foreign policy think tank I worked at, I had to take really complex academic foreign policy issues and boil them down for a general audience. And how I did that was by telling the stories of people affected by these things. And that really helped people understand what their governments are doing, what their civil society leaders are doing to help, again, make them better citizens. I parlayed that into my women's leadership era, where I helped tell the stories of women changing the world and hopefully inspiring other people to fight for their rights. And so coming to World Central Kitchen, I really feel was a full circle for me. We are the first to the front lines in disasters, like journalists are, but often we're there before the journalists. I feel that because of that, if we're there before the journalists, and sometimes even before governments or civil society help even gets there, we're a witness to history, and we have a responsibility to tell the stories of what's happening in these places that we can see that other people can't. So I really feel like journalism and being a frontline responder that way has really has brought me to this moment in my career.
Awesome. And World Central Kitchen is really such an innovative force. And it's crazy to me that you guys are only just celebrating your 15th year of doing this work and really transforming communities in crises, and how really just turning on its head how people are receiving food during these disasters. But I'd love to hear from you, just what is the story of World Central Kitchen, and how did Jose Andres kind of get this idea to step into the impact space?
I love our origin story. It's such a great one. So I'm so glad you asked about it. And we are celebrating 15 years. World Central Kitchen was born after the Haiti earthquake in 2010. And Chef Jose went down to Haiti with some other chefs and friends of his and community leaders. He's like, what can we really do to help? And he's like, well, people need to eat. we'll just start cooking. And so he got some pots together. We always say we start one pot at a time. And he started cooking. And he was cooking his amazing, famous black beans and rice. And as he noticed all the people coming through and getting some hot, nourishing food to eat, no one was eating the black beans. They were being left on the plates and, not being eaten. And he wasn't used to that, being a chef, Michelin star awardee. And so he's like, went to the women, why aren't you eating these black beans? And like, well, you didn't make it how we like it. And Haitians eat black beans in a silky puree, not the way Jose cooked them, which was born out of his Spanish roots. And so a light bulb went off in his head, and he's like, we need to feed people what they would normally eat. And with that, the food would bring a sense of home, a sense of place, a sense of comfort to them because it was something familiar. And that's how we've operated ever since. And he also likes to say, when people are hurt, you bring in the doctors. When infrastructure is destroyed, you bring in the engineers. Well, when people need to eat, you bring in the chefs.
It really is something incredible just to have your culture kind of be brought to you through this service. And for people, even as they're going through unimaginable circumstances, having that sense of place and that sense of home through the food that they're being served has to really mean so much. And through your experience, what has this work really meant to the communities that you serve?
So at World Central Kitchen, one of our values is community. And we like to say communities are our superpower. And so we don't just swoop into a community with a one-size-fits-all plan or a set recipe, right? Every activation we do is different. And we partner with organizations on the ground. We activate local networks. We hire local food trucks. We set up emergency kitchens. And we really work to support regional economies by prioritizing local ingredients that we either cook with or distribute directly to people. And that really makes the community a core architect of the response, right? They're not just secondary players in that. And that creates a more inclusive and ambitious mission for us. The local connection makes sure our response fits that community, tastes like, looks like, and speaks like the communities themselves. And so we're not trying to tell people do it our way and it's the only way. You tell us how we need to help you. And so it's really beautiful to watch and see.
That's awesome. And I feel like as we kind of get into this, we have to chat a little bit about the state of the world. And so many things have happened in the last year, from your ongoing work happening in Ukraine and Gaza to hurricane relief efforts all over the East Coast, and also most recently the fires happening in Los Angeles. And I don't have a stat on this, but personally, it really feels like your services have been needed more in this past year than ever before. But how does your team kind of handle that and pivot from crisis to crisis and keep up with so much demand for your services?
Yeah, well, we have a goal to feed as many people as possible, and World Central Kitchen is growing. And you make a great point. We don't know when or where the next disaster is going to happen, right? A tornado gives you a little bit of warning. An earthquake might give you a little bit of warning, but so many things just pop up, at the last minute. And in our mission also is we act with the urgency of now. So our teams are at the ready all the time to be somewhere within hours. Our goal is to get there within 24 hours on the ground feeding people. So, we need special qualities for that in people. We look for flexibility, resilience, cultural sensitivity, objectivity, right? Because we're meeting people all over the world in extreme trauma, and that can be really difficult. But it just means so much when you see someone taking that first bite of food. I remember my first response was Hurricane Idalia in Florida. And we employed a food truck model there. We had food trucks spread out all over the affected area. And I was sitting in the car outside of one of the food truck locations, and I saw a man walk up to the window, get a plate of food, walk over to a bench, sit down, unwrap the food. He put the fork in and put the food in his mouth, and I could taste it by the look on his face. And I have goosebumps telling you this story right now, and that's just such an amazing thing to see. And so we're giving so much of ourselves, but what we get back is even greater.
No, that's amazing. And I have little, like, the hairs on my arm stand up a little bit as you're saying that too. And I think something that I also do want to touch on, and I mentioned Gaza previously in that last question, but there was a tragic attack that happened that led to the loss of 7 of your team members back in April. And with World Central Kitchen providing such an essential service, how are you able to kind of bounce back in times of crisis like that when it's impacting your operations and your team and you're faced with an unimaginable tragedy?
Yeah, we're forever changed by those events. And we always remember our colleagues that were killed in that Israeli airstrike in April. Gaza has been our most difficult and challenging mission to date. But I'm really proud to say we've served over 100 million meals there. We've built almost 200 community kitchens that we give equipment for and supply the food for. We built 4 high-capacity kitchens. We delivered food by land, thousands of trucks, over 2,000 trucks, air with the Jordanian Air Force and airdrops, and by sea in cooperation with the United Arab Emirates and Cyprus. And consistently, we provide over 50% of the non-UN NGO aid to Gaza.
Wow.
And after the tragedy happened this year, we are people in Gaza that we work with. We're Palestinians feeding Palestinians, right? Again, community is our superpower. They wanted to get back to work. They knew the risks that they're taking, and they just wanted to get back to work to feed their neighbors. And so they inspire us. Their dedication, their willingness to go on, fuels us to continue that and to honor our colleagues that we lost, their humanity, their dedication. We're not going to let that be forgotten. And so we continue on. But it really is, again, going back to people, the Palestinians that we work with, we couldn't do it without them. And they are working in unimaginable circumstances. I'm just thinking about, we were able to get fresh fruit into Gaza recently for the first time, apples, bananas, and oranges. And the pictures of the kids who hadn't seen these bright colors and tasted those fruits for almost a year, again, you can see the impact of your work right there at that and the joy on their faces. And so we continue on, we'll never forget, but our work is just so vital and crucial, and we can see the need every single day.
Yeah, no. And I feel like too, generally when you're in these situations and working in the middle of war, you do have to kind of be working with both sides to ensure having that logistical leeway and to help people on both sides of the aisle across the globe. But as an organization and also as a communications expert, how do you handle kind of standing up for what's right and speaking out on some of these issues? And how can you really navigate sometimes a bit of gray area within these conflicts as a humanitarian org?
It's definitely challenging. We are an apolitical organization. We don't ask people if people come to us hungry, we don't ask, what religion are you? Who did you vote for? What do you believe? If you're hungry, we'd like to feed you. And our mission is really that simple. And when people ask us these questions, I always say, well, our mission is simple, to feed as many people as we can. And recently it has been challenging, but that's also part of what we're made up of, the people that work here. I mentioned flexibility, resilience, cultural sensitivity. Objectivity is another really difficult thing to keep when you're viewing so much tragedy. But it's important that we do. And keep in mind, we we are working to feed as many people as possible, period. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to understand that mission, because it's so simple. Jose likes to quote a John Steinbeck quote, which is, wherever there is a fight so hungry people may eat, we'll be there. And that's what we try to focus on.
And I know you've mentioned as well that so much of what's at the center of your work is community, and a lot of those grassroots relationships and partnerships that make what you do possible, especially in some of these emergency situations, having people on the ground within 24 hours. And you guys have created these incredible networks and supply chains to ensure that you're getting food into these places. But what does it kind of take to really build these relationships and manage these relationships and ensure that no matter what's happening anywhere in any corner of the globe, that you guys can get there and get this work done?
Yeah. So we have an incredible network. And when people say, how do you do it so fast? It really is old fashioned, calling up people that you know. And if they can't help you, do you know someone that can help us? And usually you can. Also, good journalism skills, right? Never hang up unless you have a new lead. So we have an amazing program called the Chef Corps. Right now, it's 450 chefs globally, and they're really culinary leaders in their community. And how does this help us out? Their chefs are so trusted, right? Because people eat the food they're cooking. That is a level of trust right there. But they know the supply chains, they know the logistics, they know the people, they know the culture. And so that's our first step. We call our chefs that we have a relationship with, and we're like, can you help? Do you know someone can help? Do you know where we can get this fuel? Do you know where we can get food trucks? And it's really working the phones. We have our relief team gets on the plane, they start flying. Back at headquarters, we're working the phones to call everyone in our networks, people we worked with before, bringing up the volunteers we've worked with before. And it's just old-fashioned telephone like that. And it's really amazing. And the Chef Corps has been really crucial to our response in Southern California right now. And we have one chef who lost everything. He has nothing, his home burned to the ground. And every day he's coming and cooking for his neighbors and the firefighters and the crews that are working to clean up the debris. And it's his way, it also offers you a sense of purpose after you've lost everything. So it's just amazing. And there are culinary ambassadors all over the world. They help us in all kinds of ways. So we couldn't do it without them.
No, that's amazing. And I feel like, again, it all comes back to that community and having people to turn to in these moments and feel a part of something and helping move forward from these circumstances that really, I think, is truly empowering in unimaginable circumstances. And I think the next thing I really wanted to talk about is kind of the storytelling that goes around this work and how you're able to garner support through that. And as an organization that's working across the globe, what does it actually take to create these campaigns that effectively engage people from very various communities? And also, I'm sure with that, there's also some invisible hurdles that you're encountering as you guys are trying to grow your mission on such an incredible scale. So I would love to hear about how you guys have approached this recently.
Yeah. So our mission really helps me out a lot in my job because food is a universal human right. Everybody eats. No one's against food. So I'm already one step ahead of the game in that way. But as we do expand globally, our brand is very well known in the United States. We serve people all over the world, and we want to increase our brand awareness in all the places that we serve. And one way we're doing that is, again, back to community. Storytelling is really important to World Central Kitchen, and we hire photographers and videographers everywhere we go. And so we've really started hiring local photographers, local videographers, again, who know the community, who know cultural sensitivities, who might know stories that we don't know. Again, giving people the opportunity to tell their own stories, tell their own, struggle to overcome whatever disaster they're going through at the moment. And so that's really what we're focused on now as we expand, is that local storytelling, that first person storytelling, and really, really working to get to the heart of the communities and how they want to be represented to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I know in the third annual Anthem Awards, we actually award you guys for the cookbook that you created that shared a lot of those local stories and recipes that you guys have utilized over time and collected from the work that you're doing. And that was something where, as soon as I started looking at it, it was just such a beautiful display of the work that you do and how you guys really create those connections with the local communities you serve. And so, also kind of going off of that, obviously you're an Emmy Award-winning storyteller. The organization has won a handful of Gold Anthem Awards over the past 2 years. So what is kind of your advice for any organization that's looking to level up in how they tell their story or how they engage their community? And how can people really strengthen their impact through communications?
Yeah. So I love to tell everybody, I love digging deep in what I call story mining, right? Mining for stories, and doing it both in your organization and outside of your organization. And I think everybody listening kind of gets that. I think everybody that works here is so dedicated and passionate and amazing. And they all have amazing stories and might have been through some of the things of the people that we serve. I was in Ukraine over the summer, and I went to the front lines with our people serving food to communities where towns are deserted. People have been living underground for 2 years with no electricity, no running water. And our people in Ukraine, Ukrainians again, serving Ukrainians, are so committed to serving them. But as I spent time there, I not only tried to talk to the people that we were serving, but my colleagues in Ukraine, and everyone had such an amazing story of what they did before the war, right? And how the war has changed their lives and how they came to World Central Kitchen. And so connecting with our audiences, not only through the people we serve, but the people that we are, that make us up, which is really one and the same, when you see how we meld with whatever community we're in. So I'd say story mining, not only externally, but internally, so that people can connect with the people doing the work and connect with the people that you serve.
No, I think that's fantastic advice. And something I've seen from organizations too is sometimes they see these large scale agency campaigns. They're like, well, we can't do that. But it's like, you're doing this work and you have access to an incredible community of people you serve and people that are out there doing this work day in and day out, and tapping into that and finding those stories, any organization is able to do, no matter any budgetary restrictions. So I think that's really where a lot of this gets started.
Yeah. Again, it's citizen journalism, whatever you want to call it, also asking people just to record their own stories. So a lot of our content, does just come from people on their iPhones. In addition to the professionals, we have shooting and creating videos.
Awesome. And I'm also curious, what really are some of the motivations that keep your team going? I know we've spoken a lot about how these are people serving their own communities and that they have really a personal stake in being a part of this work. But how do you kind of build resiliency in these moments where people might be losing a little bit of hope? And how can you also support the people coming to World Central Kitchen to receive aid to help them feel that tomorrow's going to be okay and there really is a brighter tomorrow in the future?
One of my colleagues in Ukraine was telling me, so when the war started, we immediately set up in Poland on the border, and we're working with everyone coming across, leaving Ukraine. And one thing that we did was set up hot chocolate tents. And my colleague in Ukraine and I were talking, and she said she went and got this cup of hot chocolate, and she said it was more than hot chocolate to me. It meant hope. It meant someone cared about us, and people were showing up for us. And I think that's what keeps us going and what keeps the community going, because they see that someone cares and someone's willing to put their own life on the line or live in not the most great circumstances, right? In disasters, nobody has electricity, nobody has water, nobody has a way to wash their clothes or anything like that. And so we're all in it together with them. And I think, again, that human bonding, that we're all here together and together we're going to dig ourselves out of this, is what keeps everyone going, but internally and externally.
And as we think about kind of that brighter tomorrow, as World Central Kitchen is wrapping up operations in a community, what kind of work is done to kind of put into place some sustainable solutions? So as you leave the community and as they're kind of back getting their feet under them again, how are you guys able to help them as they're rebuilding those food systems?
Yeah, a lot of people ask, how do we decide when to leave? And really, we look at things like, are the schools opening back up? That means kids can get food at school. Are the grocery stores open? Are the restaurants opening? Are the roads in good enough shape for people to get to wherever they're going? And once we see the community coming back, we start thinking about how we might shift our priorities. And we always want to leave the community better than we found it. And I can think of an example when there were the fires on Maui. We actually stayed for months sponsoring local farmers markets where people could get fresh fruit and vegetables. And that went on for a very long time until more people could get them on their own. In Southern California right now, we're working to provide restaurant workers who might not be able to go back to work yet with gift cards, so we can help them out a little bit. And I always think about Acapulco was hit by 2 hurricanes within a year, Hurricane Otis and Hurricane John. And when we went down for Hurricane Otis, there was a bridge to some local communities that was washed out. And World Central Kitchen and the community folks, we were crossing the river with bales of food on our heads until we rebuilt the bridge for them. Well, the next year, Hurricane John came and washed out our bridge, and we were done. So we want to leave the communities better than before. And if that means building a bridge, that's what we're going to do. Our equipment, our pots, our pans, our know-how, right? Training everybody, like, this is how we do it. This is how you do the most efficient. This is how you can feed more people. We're always adapting, and it's really interesting in Gaza. People are always spending more time. How can we get more meals out of one pot, or how can we cook more faster? And they started wrapping our pots in these, they're called Wonder Bags. And so they keep the pot at a cooking level, even though it's not on the fire. So the food can keep cooking, but you can put another pot on the fire, right? So innovating like that and working with the community to come up with solutions and leaving behind infrastructure, we just hope that our goal is for the community to grow and continue on and be better than before.
Awesome. And so as we kind of start wrapping up our conversation here, one thing that we do at the Anthem Awards and how we celebrate all of our winners is through these 1-sentence call to action speeches. So today, I'm curious, what is kind of one reminder or vision that you would like to leave our Anthem audience with?
This is one that I steal from Jose, and he likes to say, everyone is a part of World Central Kitchen, you just don't know it yet. And that's sort of our call to action, that everyone is part of us. And, you might find yourself meeting us one day, you might find yourself being a part of us one day, you might find yourself supporting us one day, but everyone is a part of us. And we're trying to create a global community.
I love that. And on that same note, if anyone interested in being a part of World Central Kitchen is listening to this today, how can they better support your efforts, and where can they kind of find more information about your work?
Yeah, well, our website, WCK.org, you can read more about us, share our stories, follow us on socials. We if you can support us monetarily, one thing that's so special about us is most of our funding, the majority of our funding is just from small individual donors. And it's the few coming together to create a great impact. And we also have a volunteer hub, which you can find on our website if you want to sign up in advance. And I hope a disaster doesn't come to your community, but you'd be signed up and ready to go. But the last thing I want to say is, and you mentioned the cookbook, which is called Feeding Hope, Feeding Humanity. And it's so much more than a cookbook because the chapters aren't by appetizer or by proteins or anything like that. Each chapter is a different value, hope, resilience, and it's a really beautiful book. But in the foreword, we call on people that you contribute in any way you can. And even if it's just inviting your neighbor over and cooking dinner together and talking about the issues of the day, you will be part of our family, and we encourage everyone to do that.
I love that. And I feel like that's something that we need right now across the world is just leaning on our communities as we go through different changes and moments in time and really center ourselves around the people that we have close to us. But I just want to thank you so much for being a part of this and joining us today. I have been a big fan of World Central Kitchen for years now, and to kind of have a look behind the curtain as to how you guys do this work and why you do this work has been really inspiring. And I know the Anthem Awards community is going to love learning more about this.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, rate, like, and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. The 5th Annual Anthem Awards will be opening for entries on Tuesday, April 8th. If your work or passion is having an impact, we would love to see it entered this year. For more information about the Anthem Awards, you can visit us online at anthemawards.com and at Anthem Awards on social. Thank you to our production and editorial team, including Sugebo, Jordana, Jarrett, and Kate Mishkin. Thank you again for listening. I'm Patricia McLoughlin, and this was The Negative Space.